guys, it's Hunter. Welcome back to another video. So man, I have wanted one of these amps forever, and I finally got one. You know when sometimes the anticipation is better than the reward? Yeah, well that's not the case for this. The Marshall Silver Jubilee is an amazing amp. There's a reason this has been described as the pinnacle of Marshall tone. Smack a like on the video if you're going to enjoy it. That actually really helps out, and let's take a closer look. Real quick, just want to say this amp was provided by Sweetwater, so affiliate links to the gear I'm using will be in the description, but they have no input nor any idea what I'm going to say about it. All opinions are mine to share with you guys, and with that, let's get into it. Okay, so a quick little background on this amp. What is it? Why is it special? Well, this is a mostly faithful reissue of what most people consider to be Marshall's best amp ever. And they made some good ones. The Silver Jubilee was first released in 1987 to commemorate 25 years of Marshall and 50 years of Jim Marshall being in the music industry. It became a collector's item because it was only available for that year, and because it had a familiar but different, and in a lot of people's opinions, better voicing compared to the classic JCM 800, basically the quintessential sound of British rock tone. So, the Silver Jubilee is an amp that I've wanted for a long, long time. Prior to this amp arriving at my door, I'd never played a Jubilee. I'd never even played through a JCM 800, and I've always been drawn to more American sounding amps, but recently I've been curious about the British side of tone. And with Marshalls, there are a lot of clones, there are a lot of hot-rodded takes on their circuits, and I was actually super close to ordering a well-reviewed clone, but I don't know. There's just something special about that Scripps logo. As a novice amp collector with questionable financial responsibility, I wanted a real Marshall. Not a copy, not a clone. And I could point to all the artists that use it, Gary Holt of Slayer and Exodus. I actually had a DSL 100H before, because he used to use it. Slash's signature amp, famously, is basically an unchanged Jubilee reissue, but no. To be honest, I have no idea why I wanted this one over the legendary JCM 800, but the fact that it's silver probably didn't not play a part. By the way, I know not everyone's a fan of the color, so it also comes in black with the silver faceplate and is $250 less on Sweetwater for some reason. Anyways, as I mentioned, this is not a new amp design at all. Modern amps are coming with all sorts of features these days: noise gates, bright switches, built-in effect suites, impulse response loaders or cab sim modules, built-in speaker loads. In an almost breath of fresh air, the Silver Jubilee has none of that. 2 channels with shared EQ. While I'm a fan of simplified layouts, I'm not really a fan of shared EQ. Generally, it's not fantastic for versatility when you can't separately and specifically dial in each channel to your preferences. That being said, throw everything on 6 and you've basically got a sound that works for both channels. And if you're like me, you just dial it in for the lead channel anyways. Now for the reissue, they did add a couple of convenience features like an effects loop, but generally speaking, this is a proper old school, big, get off my lawn, you crazy kids energy, high wattage tube amp. But when it was first introduced, it was ahead of its time. The original 1987 Silver Jubilee was Marshall's first implementation of the pentode triode selector, essentially a half power switch. Unfortunately, the way that it works is not like with modern amps where it'll use half the tubes at full power. That way you get most of the tone with lower headroom and at more manageable volumes. Instead, the triode model essentially drops all 4 tubes to half power, and you end up with a thinner, ball lacking kind of sound. That's not really a criticism. As I said, this is a mostly faithful reissue of a 35-year-old amp, and triode mode has its own kind of vintage flavor. It's just worth noting if you are looking to pick one of these up, because you've understandably fallen in love with the Silver Jubilee's big British tone, that half power doesn't work the same as it does with modern amps that you might be used to. So if you are looking for the Jubilee sound in lower wattage, I would suggest the 20-watt head and save a few $100 in the process. But when the amp is in its natural state, cranked and running at full power, it sounds fucking incredible. Listen, I'm a believer in the marriage of old school tube tone and modern technology, but you cannot argue with this tone. This is why you buy this amp. If someone doesn't like the sound of the Silver Jubilee, that is a big ol' red flag as far as I'm concerned. Run. There's just something freeing about having a plug-and-play amp, minus all the potentially paralysis-inducing bells and whistles. As an illustration, look at the control panel. We've got 7 knobs total. The Hughes & Kettner Tri-Amp has 33. This is a deliciously old school amp. And by the way, while we're looking at it, the mirror control plates are fantastic. I know the gold control plates with the Scripps logo are iconic, but I don't know, the mirror looks phenomenal. It's kind of hard to see what's written on it sometimes, but who cares because it looks cool. So you've got your clean channel. It's actually quite nice, quite warm. This has been the go-to amp for John Frusciante of the Red Hot Chili Peppers for a long time, so that's a pretty solid endorsement for the cleans. Pull this knob, lulz in British, and you're in to the lead channel though. When I think Marshall tone in my head, this amp produces exactly that sound but in real life. It's so crunchy and with so much presence. It's the holy grail of rock tone. Now, it doesn't have as much gain as I'd been expecting, but it's not exactly a low gain head by any means either. If you're looking to get solid metal tone, throw a tube screamer on and you're golden. And another big reason as to why people love the Silver Jubilee amps is that it has a rhythm clip mode that you activate by pulling on this knob, lols again in British. Essentially, this activates another clipping diode. So you can use this in a couple of ways. You can add a little bit of high-end bristleness back if you have to play on low volumes. Real quick aside on that though, 100% get an attenuator if you're playing through a real cab, or a 2-notes capture if you're recording direct. Because I would say if you're not cranking this thing, that's a giant shame, because you're just not experiencing the magic of this amp to its fullest. When it's given the room that it needs to breathe, the Silver Jubilee is one of the best amps I've ever played, just straight up. It sounds exactly what I was hearing in my head when it comes to big, crumpet-eating, Earl Grey drinking, inexplicably putting beans on toast. What the f is wrong with you? Ultra British rock and roll tone. Made a ton of enemies there, but we move. It's described a lot as a smoother, sweeter, yet ballsier, higher gain JCM 800. And again, having never played through a JCM, I have no idea if that's true. All I know is how this amp sounds. You've got that traditional British high gain, bright, all the presence in the world that makes it prominent in a mix. And it's true, it doesn't quite have the spikiness that you hear in a lot of clips of the JCM 800. That could also be completely down to what speakers or IRs they're using. Your cab, your speakers, they do matter a lot. But yeah, getting sidetracked. Basically, this entire video boils down to this Silver Jubilee is the ultimate crunchy Marshall sound I'd been hearing in my head. It's a super fucking Marshall-y Marshall, and I love it. That's it. But that will do it for this love letter to Marshall amps, and specifically the Silver Jubilee. So here's where I'll throw it to you. Silver Jubilee or just Marshall amps in general, let me know what you're thinking down below. Massive thanks to my amazing patrons who make each and every video possible. Their names are up on the screen right now. Consider joining them if you want to directly support what I do. You can also join as a channel member or pick up some comfy merch. Everything really helps out. Social media, Discord, and links to all the gear are in the description. As always, thank you so much for watching. You've been awesome, and I will see you for the next video.